Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering, as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellowah Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. I'm going to talk today about freedom and responsibility. There's a price to pay for freedom and liberation, and that price is responsibility. What's new about that, you might think? Well, wherever you are, or wherever I am, or wherever any of us are in our path in life, we might be trying to find for ourselves a greater sense of freedom and sovereignty. And if that's our goal, we might have a lot of learning to do in order to get there. If we consider when we're born, we are just a ball of feed me, clean me, help, protect me. We are helpless. We are not able to take responsibility for anything in our lives. We're literally not able to do that. As we get older, we begin to have the possibility to be able to do that. We reach a point as adults where we're expected to pretty much take responsibility for our lives, paying our own way, turning up for work when we're supposed to, if we're running a business, delivering a good quality service or product, in relationships, having some sort of self-discipline, some generosity of spirit, doing what needs to be done in order to have things work, looking after the children, looking after the grandchildren. All of these things are generally considered part of being a responsible human being and a responsible adult. And I think most of us have mastered a lot of that. And a lot of us find ourselves some of the time in life feeling trapped or suppressed or limited in some way. In other words, not completely free. So supposing that experience of being not completely free might be something to do with a lack of taking full, absolute responsibility for everything about our lives. Supposing there's a correlation and a causation there. Supposing if in the areas we don't feel completely free, we were to take extra responsibility around that, might that make a difference? I have a story I sometimes tell in this context that I never get tired of. Imagine the scene. You're in a Tibetan monastery up in the mountains, and this is some time ago. So it's a Tibetan monastery in times gone past. And the Chinese soldiers have come over the mountains and invaded the monastery. They've gone through the cells and they've found the head monk and they've dragged him out and they've thrown him to the ground in the center of the courtyard of the monastery. He's kneeling on the ground. And the head soldier comes up to him and points his sword at the head monk's head. And the monk is sitting there in perfect equanimity, completely relaxed and looking very peaceful. And the soldier says to him, "How can you be sitting there so peacefully? How can you look so comfortable? Don't you realize that in a split second I could put my sword through your head?" And the monk looks up at him and says, "Do you not realize that in a split second I could have you put your sword through my head?" Now, we don't know what happens after that. But that is an example of someone taking an extraordinary level of responsibility. He's taking complete responsibility for the situation he's in, and for the situation which could occur next. There's no blame being expressed. There's no resentment. There's no allocating of power to anybody outside of himself. So the minute we allocate blame, or the minute we decide that someone or something or a circumstance outside of us is actually preventing us from feeling free, we are, in that moment, giving power to that person, that situation, that circumstance. We are saying, you have power over me. So you might think this is semantics or just messing about with philosophy or that kind of thing. You might say that, and you might be right. But the point I'm trying to make is there's a possibility of looking at the most oppressive situation that we might find ourselves in and choosing to look at it from the perspective of, can I take responsibility for this? Can I own this? Can I do so in such a way that I'm not blaming anyone or anything? I'm saying, I own this experience. I'm responsible for this experience. And what difference does that make to my sense of freedom of spirit? I might be in shackles. I may be imprisoned. I may be enslaved. I may be in any number of difficult situations. And for most people listening to this, those things are not possibilities. But there are people where those are possibilities. And for many of us, we have found ourselves in situations where we do feel trapped. Much more innocuous situations, like trapped in a bad relationship, trapped in a job that we hate, trapped in an overweight body that we feel that we cannot change. These traps that we find ourselves in, to what extent could we actually extend our sense of responsibility and take ownership of all of it? And what difference would that make to our sense of personal freedom? I'm suggesting it would make a radical difference. So in my personal case, something I'm continuously seeking to do is to take responsibility at a deeper level and in a wider context, repeatedly and continuously, over and over again. Because the degree to which I've already done that dictates the degree to which I experience myself as a free and sovereign being. And the degree to which I don't feel like a free and sovereign being are the aspects where I have not yet taken full responsibility. This is how I see it. I'm not saying this is an absolute truth. I'm putting it forward as a possibility. So for anyone listening to this, if you would like to have more of an experience of personal freedom, freedom of spirit, shall we say, internal freedom, the kind of internal freedom that no one can take away, then I'm suggesting look to see the areas in your life where you feel helpless, powerless, where you feel that someone or something outside of you has power over you. And consider the possibility of taking ownership and responsibility for those experiences and those situations and circumstances. Try it out and see what happens. And by the way, I'm sure I don't need to say that there's a difference between blame and responsibility. Blaming ourselves is just as unproductive as blaming outside ourselves. Because when we blame ourselves, we are actually creating a fracture within us. We are creating an inner conflict, which is unhelpful and undermining. So blaming oneself is just as bad as blaming other people. So something to consider and reflect on, perhaps. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And so that's all from Truth and Transcendence this week. You'll find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Please give a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, tell your friends, write a review, put a comment about what we've been talking about today. All of these things help so much to spread the word of this podcast. Until next time, have a great week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.